For the overwhelming majority of Phillies fans, he's the only in-stadium voice you've ever heard.
Now batting for the Phillies, number 3, first baseman Bryce Harper.
The voice belongs to Dan Baker, who's not only flourished in his position for more than a half-century, he has done so while waging a ferocious battle with cancer. Phillies public address announcer, Dan Baker. Next on Fresh 24. Dan Baker, the longest tenured public address announcer in Major League Baseball, the Phillies PA voice since 1972. I'm going to tell you there have been 10 U.S. presidents since then, enshrined in the Philadelphia and Camden County Sports Halls of Fame, former Eagles PA voice, former Drexel Dragons play-by-play voice, former Big Five basketball play-by-play voice and executive director, husband, father, grandfather, and cancer survivor. Dan Baker, welcome to Fresh 24.
Thank you very much, Mark. It's great to see you.
I got to tell you, my friend, it's an honor to have you, and we have a lot to talk about. In fact, I would like to talk extensively about your cancer battle. I think you'll be an inspiration to many people. How you got the job of the Phillies way back in 1972, and how you've been able to keep the job. That's not always easy because, unfortunately, after a long tenure with the Eagles, you were let go. We'll talk about that. But first, I know you get asked this all the time, and I'm going to request that you do this, respectfully request, because a lot of people see me on the street and they want me to go, Iverson for 3, yes. So give me Bryce Harper coming to the plate during a big spot in the game.
Now batting for the Phillies, number 3, first baseman Bryce Harper.
Oh, dude, you're giving me chills. Do you realize the impact that you have had on people all these years? Do you ever step back and realize that?
I know I'm very fortunate to be there. I'm so uplifted, Mark, just by being at the ballpark. I can remember going to Connie Mack Stadium as a kid. That was like my happy place, seeing the green grass and the Valentine scoreboard in right field and seeing the Phillies players and hearing the people cheer for the team. I was not a bad athlete as a boy and a young man. Of course, not nearly good enough to play professionally, but just being there was so enjoyable. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if there was some way that I could attend these games on a regular basis. And thanks to my parents, I was always a pretty good speaker. As a kid, they insisted on my pronouncing every syllable in a word, speaking in grammatically correct English, making eye contact with people, practicing good communications. And it really helped me along the way. And all through school, beginning with elementary school, if there was a speaking opportunity, the teachers would select me, for assemblies or, programs. And I was always comfortable speaking in front of people. And that combined with my love of sports, eventually, I was a school teacher for 12 years in Philadelphia. I loved doing that. I coached the boys basketball team that included Gene Banks as fifth grader. and later broadcast West Philadelphia High School basketball when Gene and Clarence Tillman were there. Um, like growing up in Philadelphia, and I rooted for all the Philadelphia sports teams, professional, college, high school, uh, Division twos, Division threes, and I feel lucky to have had such an interest, my whole life, and it's given me something to look forward to. And Mark, it even you referenced my health challenges. I really feel as if this love of sports and announcing uh, helped me cope with some of the medical challenges I faced in the last few years.
Well, with that, you've opened the door to so many things. But I have to ask you, who was the PA announcer before you more than half a century ago?
Uh, I started the second year that the Phillies played at Veterans Stadium, 1972. The year that the vet opened, the public address announcer for the Phillies was Art Wolf. Art Wolf, also a longtime sports writer in the Philadelphia area, and I believe he was on KYW for many years. A very, very nice man, and really, the opportunity for me, Mark, came along um, at Veterans Stadium. The public address announcer had the dual responsibilities of PA announcing and operating the game in progress scoreboard. Ball strikes outs, runs, hits, errors, line score. Uh, you do not have to be a genius to do it. I've been keeping scores at Little League baseball games, my whole life, and scores in the book and all that. So that's something that's like second nature, and that was something that was very important to Bill Giles when he interviewed me in the fall of 1971, and I know that that was something that he considered strongly when he gave me this wonderful opportunity.
Did you have to audition? Like, did you have to say left fielder Willie Montañez?
Yes, I did. They brought me upstairs into the old scoreboard room with the vet, and I made some announcements. But I think Bill was comfortable with my elocution, in our in-person interview. Bill, of course, is a great showman. I think of Bill Veeck and Bill Giles when I think of the great promoters in baseball history, and Bill Giles certainly is right up there. But he knows something about entertainment. Remember, he used to bring in the great Wallenda. He walked across the Veterans Stadium from foul pole to foul pole. Oh my goodness! And
Kite Man, remember Kite Man?
Kite Man, I started the same. Steve Carlton, Kite Man, and I all started in '72.
Kite Man used to deliver the baseball opening day, right?
He did. Well, the first year or two, he tried to deliver it, Mark, without a lot of success. But it was something that brought a lot of attention to opening day, brought a lot of fans to the ballpark, and it certainly accomplished Bill Giles' objectives of getting more people into the ballpark to watch Phillies baseball.
Hey, it's Marc Zumoff. Join me and Philly sports favorites Seth Joyner, Mike Quick, MMA champ Eddie Alvarez, Joe Conklin, Dee Lynam, Matt Cord, Ricky Bowe, and the Cuz, Anthony Gargano. What a lineup. We want you to join us on the Bet Parks team. Bet Parks is the official winning partner of the Philadelphia 76ers and the only casino and sports book that yours truly, Marc Zumoff, recommends and uses. Whether your team scores or not, there's always another way to win on the Bet Parks online casino and sportsbook app. Bet Parks has your seat with a live dealer for all your favorite classic casino games. Right on your phone and wherever you are, the tailgate, the stadium, on your couch. Double down on fourth down. Make downtime fun time. Play live dealer blackjack, craps, roulette, and more while watching the game. Bet on all your favorite sports. Bet the Birds, pro football, and college football. Download the BetParx app right now and enjoy all the action and excitement from the casino at your fingertips. Play hundreds of exciting online slots. New users download the BetParx online casino app and sportsbook and get up to $1,000 casino bonus back if you're down in the first 24 hours. Casino bonus must be wagered. See betparx.com for details. Must be 21 and in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, or Michigan. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. You play for fun. You love to win. You bet. BetParx. I like to help young kids with history, and being a Phillies fan in the 60s was a very frustrating experience. Not like today where they're really good and it's a whole different, you'll pardon the expression, ball game. What was it like for you being a Phillies fan in the 60s? And I can harken back to 1964, up 6.5 games with 12 to play, a chance to get to the World Series. There were no playoffs then. They blew that. It was very disappointing. But other than that, some teams that were never in contention, not even close.
Well, I fell in love with that 64 team. And I was born in 1946. My first game at Connie Mack Stadium, Marc, was in 1954 when my father took my brother Rick and me. And by then, the Whiz Kids were starting to fade a little bit. And, Richie Ashburn, Robin Roberts, Willie Jones, Del Ennis, Granny Hamner, they were the stars of the 1950s. Andy Semenick, Stan Lapata, a couple of catchers. But, with the Brooklyn Dodgers, with the New York Giants, later in the 50s, the Milwaukee Braves, the Phillies were rarely in contention. And by the end of the 50s, they were really bad. But there was hope on the way with young pitchers like Art Mahaffey and Chris Short, soon to be Phils, and pitched very well. And of course, both of them became all-stars. That gave us, hope for the future. But that 61 team, that was one of the worst in baseball history. They still have the record for most consecutive losses, 23. But I love them nonetheless. Ruben Amaro, Senior, and Bobby Wine, and that Don Demeter. I remember in 62 and 63. And then we traded him to Detroit for Jim Bunning. And
that was a great trade.
Oh, it was. And I used to save my quarters and take a bus over from New Jersey, Marc. And then sometimes I'd walk all the way up Broad Street, all the way to Lehigh Avenue, save the quarter for the subway so I could buy a bag of peanuts on the way. On the way in. I was in heaven, though. I loved it. I went by myself sometimes, mostly my brother, high school friends later, and it was just a joy. It always has been.
So when did the announcing bug first bite?
I used to, when I would play baseball, and I was a pretty good baseball player, as most of us are in Little League and it's Camden County Pony League, later the Guard. I would sometimes do it then. I would imitate with basketball games. I played a little basketball, played a couple of years in college at Glassboro State. I would imitate the late, great Dave Zinkoff. Did I enjoy his announcements, and going to see the Philadelphia Warriors at the old Convention Hall, Wilt Chamberlain, Paul Arizin, Tom Gola, Guy Rogers, with whom I later became very good friends. To me, maybe the greatest player in Big Five history, even with all the greats that we've had even in recent years. I realized I was never going to make the big show as a participant.
Yeah, right.
And people complimented me on my imitations of Zink, and Pete Byron, who was the Phillies PA announcer in the 50s and 60s. And by the way, Dave Zinkoff, also did Phillies public address.
Oh,
And
I did not know that.
he was the PA announcer for the Phillies in the pennant winning year of 1950.
Ah, I
Dave,
did not know that.
absolutely. And Dave, of course, gosh, Dave did the Harlem Globetrotters, did Temple football. He did boxing ring announcing, as did Pete Byron. Philadelphia's, Mark, was one time a boxing capital, and
Oh,
many
yeah.
big fighters came from Philadelphia.
You mentioned Dave Zinkoff, who had a very unique style, and you are very unique as well. He injected a lot of personality. How much of your personality is injected into what you do?
I would say not to the extent that Zink does. Dave did it with great flair, and I watched him carefully and tried to learn from Dave. And we did dinners together, and we're at the head table for different sports banquets. Um, but he was unique and very entertaining. And I always thought an important part of the entertainment element for Philadelphia Warriors and Philadelphia 76ers games. Um, I uh, my emotions come through I try to do it straight, Mark, for the visiting team. I want to be respectful. I want to be correct and make sure their names are said accurately. Um, but I keep it pretty much straight for the visitors. But for the Phillies, of course, I'll try to give it a little more emphasis, a little more enthusiasm, in hopes of maybe encouraging our home crowd a bit. Um, but I never forget for a moment that the most important thing is to say the names correctly so everybody can hear them. And I, some sports public address announcers do the yelling and the screaming. I mean, which I'm not a yeller or a screamer. I'll try again. I'll try to emote. I'll try to get the fans involved, and I always want to do it in a positive way. Not getting booing and all that. I don't like that part. I believe in good sportsmanship. Um, but Zink was certainly someone from whom I learned a great deal. Another man from whom I learned a great deal, Mark, was a guy named Buddy Wagner. Buddy
Hmm.
was a ring announcer for the WW. It was the Worldwide Wrestling Federation, and I was a backup for him in
Hmm.
the late '60s at the Channel 48. WKBS TV, 3201 South 26th Street. And I met a lot of
On the way to the airport. On the way
right,
to the airport.
exactly right.
Yeah.
And then it became Steen Advertising after Channel 48 closed. The billboards but I introduced Bruno Sammartino and
Hmm.
uh, Tony Altamori and uh, oh God, a number of wrestlers, Tony Pugliese,
Hmm.
Antonio Pugliese, and uh, that was a lot of fun. But Buddy Wagner was always well dressed, and he was very colorful, and and he had a way of getting your attention. Uh, and so I've tried to emulate him. My style, Mark, is kind of a compilation. And I don't know if you're aware that beginning in the 60s, when I was still in college, I started doing statistics for visiting NFL announcers and visiting NBA announcers. I get like $10, $15 a game. Worked with Skip Carey for many years in the NBA. Worked with Andy Musser, uh, doing some Sixers games as well. And so sitting next to these uh, terrific play-by-play announcers, it was like getting a master's degree. seeing the way that they prepared. And I know that you're, besides having wonderful skills, I know you're a student and work hard at your craft. And it's no accident that you are such a great basketball play-by-play announcer.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. Of course, would be the operative word there. But listen, this is all about you. And I do want to talk more about your cancer battle. Again, I think you're going to be an inspiration to a lot of people. Um, and how you've been able to keep the job for more than half a century. And of course, being the PA voice of the Eagles for what was it? I think it was 30 years or so. But first, we have our halftime segment. And the first part of our halftime, Dan, is being brought to you by Garage Beer. It's the Garage Beer 6-pack of questions. Garage Beer, beer flavored beer. Find some near you at drinkgaragebeer.com. I will give you a choice, Dan Baker, between two things, and you just blurt out your choice. Don't think about it. Just bang. Come right out with it. Are you ready?
I'm ready, Mark.
Cheesesteak or soft pretzel?
Soft pretzel.
Center City or South Jersey?
Center City.
I'm almost embarrassed with the next one. Gritty or Philly Fanatic?
Philly Fanatic.
Meek Mill or Hall & Oates?
Hall & Oates.
Dr. J or Allen Iverson throwback jersey?
Dr. J.
Liberty
Julius
Bell.
Irving.
By the way, kids, go on YouTube. You can hear the great Dave Zinkoff announcing the 1983 NBA champion 76er starting lineup. Last but not least here, Liberty Bell or Rocky Steps?
Liberty Bell.
The 6-pack of questions brought to you by Garage Beer, beer-flavored beer. Find some near you at drinkgaragebeer.com. Okay, my friend, I'm going to give you a handful of artists from my music library. You tell me if you have them or not. Are you ready?
Yes.
The Rolling, excuse me, the Rolling Stones.
Well, I don't really have a big collection. I've listened, but I listen to them off and on.
Marvin Gaye.
Love him.
Johnny Cash.
I like him, not as much as Marvin Gaye, but I think he's very entertaining.
Here's one. Jay-Z.
I certainly know who he is, but no, I don't listen to him that much.
Joni Mitchell.
I remember her. Yeah, I listened to her.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think she was on the Grammys not too long ago. Do you have a favorite musical group, musical artist?
The Temptations. I was a big Elvis Presley fan.
Okay.
And I like the standards, Frank Sinatra, back in the day. I like opera. And my wife and I were at the Wells Fargo Center to see Andrea Bocelli. What a magnificent voice.
Mm. So the year, Dan, was 1972. Richard Nixon was president. The U.S. was still at war in Vietnam. Gas was a whole 36 cents a gallon. And Dan Baker was named, as you detailed earlier, thanks to Bill Giles, named the PA voice of the Phillies a year after they moved from Kinemak Stadium to the Vet. How did you even get before Bill Giles to begin with?
Well, Mark, I had written to the Phillies, to the Eagles, to the Warriors, to the Big Five schools, and different sports organizations looking for some opportunity. And usually I got a polite response that said, there are no openings at this time. We'll keep your resume on file, kind of thing. I was trying to perfect my skills. I would sometimes do play-by-play, turn the sound down on TV. I think all of us have, haven't we? Those of us who have done play-by-play. Now, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought.
That's okay. We were talking about getting before Bill Giles. You had said that you had written to all the sports teams.
Yes. And then I had mentioned to you that I would keep stats or spot for visiting NFL play-by-play announcers, both radio and TV. And I did a number of games at Franklin Field. Of course, longtime home of Penn football, but for a time, uh, the home of the Eagles. And of course, where the Eagles won the 1960 NFL championship over the Green Bay Packers. But the press box steward there was a man named Pat Cassidy, a wonderful man. And he was director of operations at Veteran Stadium for Bill Giles. Pat was Bill's right hand man. Uh, and of course, in those days, Mark, the staffs were much smaller. I think when I started, in the front office, there might have been 30. Now there might be 300, 500, incredible growth. Um, but uh,
So Pat Cassidy.
Pat Cassidy goes to, um, well, he says to me, hey son, what do you want to do? I said, I'd like to do play by play eventually. He said, what would you think about PA announcing? And I said, oh my gosh, I would love to do that. He said, well, the Phillies are contemplating making a change. This is now the fall of 71. And if you want, I'll try to get an interview for you with Bill Giles. I said, oh my gosh, I'd give my right arm. And he said, well, you call me next week and I'll see if I can set it up. So I called him. He said, I got you the interview. I said, oh, thank you. He said, now it's up to you. And Bill had interviewed, I think, half dozen people for the position. And luckily enough, but it was that interview, Mark, that was the catalyst for a lot of nice things that happened to me. It really opened the door because then, with a multitude of other things, Mark, to which I'd applied, I was no longer just Dan Baker. Like, who the heck is that? I never heard of him. What's he? Dan Baker, the Phillies PA announcer. And it gave me some credibility, and I just loved it with all my heart. And I think that came through from the start, the emotion in my voice, the love of the team, and that really helped me uh, get on my way.
As my friend Alan Iverson was fond of saying, life isn't all peaches and cream. And you were the PA voice of the Eagles for some 30 years,
Mm-hmm.
only to be relieved of your duties back in 2014. What was your reaction when the team gave you the news?
Shock, disappointment. But I think all of us, Mark, who are in this business know that we serve at the pleasure of ownership management. And also decisions are sometimes made uh, by ratings, in radio or TV, and it's not always talent based or performance based. Um, I mean, it might be a new marketing director or vice president are coming in, and they want their own staff, people with whom they're comfortable, uh, and uh, and also it's important to be a good ambassador in that role, represent the team well, not offend people. Um, so I've tried to do all of those things, and I think that's helped me uh, to attain some longevity with the Phillies. And I thought it helped me. Well, I was there for 29 years, as a matter of fact. And of course, I later would do all the Army Navy games at Lincoln Financial Field until the last time they were in, when Larry Needle and the city offered me the opportunity again, but I declined because I politely declined. I was flattered to be asked it again, but I've I really feel out of practice. I think being a good announcer, whether it's play-by-play, PA, it's like a musician or a singer or an artist. You've got to do it repetitively to maintain a high skill level, a high performance level, and without doing football on a regular basis, I mean, I could have still done a decent job, but I'd like to be remembered for doing a great job. And I didn't think it was fair to the city, to Army, Navy, or to me. You know, like yourself, we've worked hard to build up a good reputation. And so I don't want to go out and do a mediocre job.
When I go to an Eagles game and settle down into my seats, I just take this deep breath and say, oh, what a great location. That's what it's all about at a sporting event, at a concert, theater, comedy, whatever. That's where Game Time comes in. I'm talking about the Game Time app. I'm talking about gametime.co. And really what I'm talking about is Game Time Picks. Simply, it gets you the best deals on the best seats like that. The Birds, my guys, the Sixers. Whoa, don't forget Red October, the Phils. Got to do it for that. Me personally, I'm all about finding the best seats quickly and what the view looks like. Go to the Game Time app or gametime.co and Game Time Picks. It's got you covered. The best seats, the best prices. It's that easy with Game Time. When were you first diagnosed with cancer and what was your reaction?
I can't say that I was. I think the actual diagnosis was 2019, but I had been having some oral issues for a year or two before that, and I had an abscess above one of my back molars on the right side, and I had that lanced. I also had a root canal, and anyway, nothing seemed to work, and it was I had some bleeding, and the situation was deteriorating, and I switched periodontists, and dentists, and they told me that whatever was going on in my mouth was more serious than could be handled in a dentist's office, that I'd better get to see an oral surgeon. So I made an appointment with Dr. Dan Taub at Jefferson, and he connected me with the otolaryngology department down there, Dr. David Cognetti, Dr. Howard Krein, Dr. John Zerlo, infectious disease. And anyway, they diagnosed it, and they said, you need to move on this quickly. And so, as it turned out, in August of 2020, they removed a 5.5 centimeter squamous cell carcinoma in my right maxillary sinus. And unfortunately, it had also invaded my cheekbone, so they had to take that out. And they replaced that, Mark, with a bone from my leg. One of the two long bones in the lower part of my left leg was removed, cut up, and formed into a cheekbone. And from that initial surgery, which was 24 hours in length, and incidentally, I guess in part because of the length of the surgery, I've lost most of the vision in my right eye. My left eye, thank goodness, is still very good. And so I had a series of surgeries, a couple dozen, probably over a 3 or 4 year period. Many were cosmetic in nature. As Dr. Krein is a brilliant reconstruction doctor, and a lot of people go to him just uh, who want to have cosmetic surgery to make for a better appearance. And he's brilliant at that. But they're all great down there. I really owe my life to them. And I've gone to so many eye doctors. It's like I feel like a full time job. So many doctor's appointments, so many visits, so many procedures. I don't say that like woe is me, because I realize I'm very fortunate to be here. Let alone, I mean, I have a wonderful wife and children, and like I'm blessed with a wonderful family, and I have all of them supporting me, and their support and love and encouragement was so um, critical to my recovery. Being in the hospital for a long time drove me nuts.
Hmm.
You know, you can't sleep, and all this testing and poking and prodding. They're just doing their job.
Of course.
No complaint with the staff, the doctors, the nurses. They're just wonderful. And Mark, we're so lucky in Philadelphia to be in a college town and with great medical centers like Jefferson and Hupp, uh, and uh, and we really have to take advantage of that. And if you spot something, you really need to address it and get it in its infancy. So then you have a chance to overcome it.
Dan, did you ever think at some point during all these surgeries and treatments and dark times that your career was threatened?
Yes, I mean, I didn't know how I was going to bounce back. Now, uh, thanks to Dave Buck at the Phillies and Marc DiNardo, um, they reached out to me several times. How are you doing? Yeah, we really want you back, and that really made me feel good. And then uh, in the pandemic year, Mark, 2020, when I had the surgery, uh, that was the pandemic shortened baseball season too. So the Phillies only had 30 home games. And I don't count that as one of my years in my 52 years. That would be 53. But if I'm lucky enough to set the longevity record for Major League Baseball's and Major League Baseball public address announcers, I want it to be fair and square, and something that I can point to with pride that I did and not took a shortcut. Um, so uh, I'm just grateful to continue, and and at this point, Mark. I am the third longest public address announcer in Major League Baseball history, and the only two with more longevity are Pat Piper of the Chicago Cubs, 59 years from 1916 to 1974 at Wrigley Field in Chicago, and the late, great Bob Shepard, the voice of Yankee Stadium. Uh, Bob served for 57 distinguished years at Yankee Stadium from 1951 through 2007. And with Bob's retirement at the age of 97, uh, following the 2007 baseball season, at that point, Mark, I became the longest tenured PA announcer in Major League Baseball. So a distinction I've enjoyed, since that time.
So,
And
if my math is correct, Dan, if I can interrupt you, 8 more years do you need to break the record?
yes, yes. So if the Phillies will have me, if um, my health remains good, and if I can still perform at a high level, uh, and if everything falls into place, and I think there's a chance that it could, then I could hold that record.
Dan Baker, for the record, it was a pleasure having you on Fresh 24. Thank you so much for
Oh,
joining us. We really
Mark.
do appreciate it.
Up to great work.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to this episode of Fresh 24. Please subscribe, rate, and review. wherever you get your podcasts.
Check out our friends over at Philadelphia Sports Nation, a local Philadelphia sports site covering your favorite teams across blogs and social media. PHLSportsNation.com. Philadelphia Sports Nation, PHL Sports Nation, enhancing your Philadelphia sports fan experience.